Trusting yourself as an adult can be a very difficult thing to do, especially when you have emotionally abusive, authoritarian, narcissistic kinds of parents who made you always look at their agenda and what was important to them and focus on them all the time. You may have learned to completely neglect your own inner voice and not trust yourself to make decisions and choices and things that are really good for you. So in this video, I'm going to talk about 3 ways to build self-trust that can help you rebuild that part or build it in the first place, because you may have never built it at all, especially if you are an ACON, an adult child of a narcissistic parent. I'm Dr. Meg Haworth, and I help ACONs, adult children of narcissists, become icons, healed icons. What's an icon? Independent, confident, original, and naturally you. So I help you go from the wounded ACON to healing icon, so you can become the icon in your own life. And so today we're going to talk about self-trust. And self-trust is one of the 5 primary wounds in my online course, Healing the 5 Primary Wounds of Parental Narcissistic Abuse, that I go over in the course and that I help you with and I go in depth around. But self-trust is one of those wounds, and it's a big one. It's really, really important. And one of the things that happens when you have an abusive parent, particularly narcissistically abusive, that's a controlling parent, that's an overbearing parent, that's an authoritarian parent, and potentially a narcissistic parent who's very self-involved and very into themselves and demand that you also be into that parent too and doing everything for them. So the whole action of them trying to control you over time basically disconnects you from your own inner voice, from your own intuitive knowings. Simultaneously, what happens, and I hear this a lot from my clients who tend to be empathic, sensitive, who were invisible or scapegoated children in their family, or even enablers. And so they may have heightened intuitive abilities. And one of the reasons it's heightened is because they were constantly looking for and sensing and feeling out for narcissistic rage and when it was going to happen, and trying to figure out, it's sort of like walking through landmines. You're trying to figure out like what I should or shouldn't do, what's okay, what's not okay. And the bottom line is that it doesn't matter what you do or don't do. If they are triggered into a narcissistic rage, it's going to happen. And so one of the things that we do is we really take on that narcissistic rage, and we take on that responsibility. Like, we made that happen. Especially when you're a child, that's how children think, well, I did this and then my parent did that, so I must be bad. And so you internalize those things, and you're being programmed quite literally to not trust yourself, to not listen to your inner voice, because your inner voice holds a lot of power. It holds the power to get you out of the situation. And they certainly don't want you to get out of the situation. They want you to stay in the situation. Now, that may be fully unconscious to them, but they are doing things that they know are controlling and overbearing and wearing away at you. And they may be aware of that to a certain degree. But it's hard to know. So I'm going to get to these 3 ways to build self-trust. Number 1, stop blaming yourself for the actions of others. So you grow up in a narcissistically abusive home, and so you're blamed, you're shamed. Those things are projected onto you and onto your other siblings as well, depending on where they are in the roles that narcissistic parents kind of hand out to their children. And also depending on the behaviors that the narcissistic parent is using. They're going to love you if you're doing the right thing, or show love, or, you're loved conditionally. But if you're doing the wrong thing, boy, are you in really big trouble. So to learn to stop blaming yourself for things that other people do. You are not responsible for your parents' rage. You are not responsible for the guy who just cheated on you. And as a woman, I know that's really hard to get because you always think, oh, what does she have that I don't have? And it's really not about it. That's not really why people cheat. It's not your fault. It's not your responsibility when somebody else does something. What is your responsibility is when you do something to hurt yourself, when you don't listen to your own inner voice trying to warn you against something. That's different. That's your responsibility. You can overrule that inner voice telling you, no, this person isn't really a great choice for you, and go ahead and do the thing and get to know them and date them or whatever, become friends with them, even though your inner voice is kind of like, this doesn't feel quite right. So learning to listen to that inner voice is really, really important. And one of the first things that you need to do is to stop blaming yourself. You don't need to take on the responsibility for everyone else's actions. The only person you're really responsible is for you and your own actions. It can be really frustrating because your narcissistic parent or mate or friend or any narcissist in your life or narcissistic person in your life is not going to take responsibility for the things that they do. They're going to make you feel wrong for having your own feelings about something, for expressing your own feelings about something. So it can become very confusing and very difficult when you're trying to understand your own ability to trust yourself and to really feel and know what that means, what that is. Number 2 way to begin to build self-trust is to learn to connect with your intuition. And your intuition is your inner voice. That's your inner guidance. Everyone has this built into themselves, and everyone can get in touch with themselves and really hear this part of the self. And one of the ways that you can get in touch with intuition, one of the primary ways, is to learn to meditate. And there's actually a video on my channel on meditating to develop your intuition, to enhance your intuition, and to get in touch with your intuition, because it's really that still, soft voice inside of you that is probably being drowned out by that inner critic who's constantly back here telling you what's wrong with you. You should have worn that. You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have said that. All of that is really common with ACONs, where you constantly have that kind of chatter that telling yourself that you did it wrong, you got it wrong. It's that self-critical voice. It's really not even your voice. It's the voice of your narcissistic parent, of your emotionally abusive parent that is talking to you. That becomes your inner critic over time because you were programmed to think this way. And so that mind chatter really keeps you from being able to access this part of yourself. Now, you may have moments where you have these like really strong intuitive situations that occur, this strong intuitive hit, and you follow it and all of that. That's great. You can learn to get into developing your intuition so that you can get better at that part of the self. And that leads me to the number 3. This is number 3 on ways to build self-trust, is to learn to develop your intuition. And so learning to develop your intuition is really powerful. Most of us are not taught to, 1, connect with our intuition, and 2, to develop it. Most people don't know what it is or where it comes from. There's an entire art and science behind intuition. It's something that I cover in my course, Evolving Intuition, Building Self-Trust for Life, which is really for coaches, therapists, and healers. And then there's another course for intuition that I'm creating for ACONs that will be coming up to help you with building intuition. But something that you can do to help you build intuition is, 1, you start doing the meditation like I suggested, and learning to build that connection first, to start building that connection, start listening on the inside is what I like to call it, where you're hearing that inner voice telling you like this feels right for you. Your inner voice is going to tell you things yes, it may give you warnings at times, yes, but your inner voice is so often very soft and just very soft and very serene and very peaceful and very mellow. And it may tell you things, just one word that's a huge concept, like surrender, let go, allow. So those kinds of things And it may tell you like this person isn't the right person for you to be spending your time with. And you can sense and know that, but also learning what the different types of intuition are and learning what your intuitive type is and what your intuitive strengths are is something that's very, very important for you to grasp and understand so that you can build that self-trust and you can build your intuitive knowing and your sense of knowing. And there's tons of different ways to do that, many different kinds of exercises that you can use to help you with your intuition and help you build that self-trust and help you build that ability inside of yourself. And so those are the 3 ways that I really wanted to talk about today, about stop blaming yourself. It's not your fault that someone else did that thing to you, and you don't have to isolate yourself to keep from being hurt again. Being hurt is a part of living. It is a part of life, and learning how to work through that hurt, learning how to shoulder the burdens of the hurt, learning how to let go of this hurt that is happening inside of you. You, again, aren't responsible for somebody else's actions, but you are responsible for your own inner pain and processing that. And so that's one of the reasons why I created Whole Person Integration Technique. And that's what I certify coaches, therapists, and healers in my online course for intuitive development. So if you are interested in that, just go ahead and book a free call with me. If you're interested in working with me one-on-one, you can book a free call with me as well, and we can talk about that. And if you want to do a little self-study course on being an ACON, I'm going deeper into self-trust, go ahead and check out my online course. It's in the description below and in the comments as well. It's called Healing the 5 Primary Wounds of Parental Narcissistic Abuse. And you may think, well, my parent wasn't a narcissist, but oh boy, is my husband ever one, or my wife, or, that you may not even see that one of your parents is a narcissist. You may be completely blind to it, and you attracted somebody who felt familiar as your spouse or your partner. And so if you have been in a long-term relationship with somebody, so you got married really young and then you had kids and you stayed with them for like 25 years, if you've been in that, you also would qualify for this course, Healing the 5 Primary Wounds of Parental Narcissistic Abuse, because it's very similar what happens to you over time when you go through this kind of abuse over and over and over again. There's a programming that occurs with it. And so if you feel like you've been in a long-term relationship, that course will help you. It helps you holistically. It helps you mentally, emotionally, physically, and energetically. So we're dealing with the energy drains and the energy dynamics between you and the narcissistic person in your life, whether it be a parent or a spouse or a friend or a boss, and helping you release those connections so that they're not pulling your energy. So it's your side of the deal on that one of releasing that. So if any of this stuff has resonated with you today and you would like to continue building self-trust, then again, please, you can book a free call with me or check out my courses. And I'm Dr. Meg Haworth, and I hope that this information will help you get well.